Absolutely.
Next thing then is the Great Push.
Yep.
So there's some drama in the Great Push.
And in both the video title and in this, I put a big apostrophe around drama, a big inverted comma, because it's not really drama. I don't think anyone's particularly mad or upset about it. It's just...
Right. Interesting.
That's how... I mean, people are, but people will be mad about anything.
Gotcha.
Like the game being DD West and believing it wasn't.
True.
That's the kind of response we're talking about. So I'm just saying, you know what? Let's do a little bit of clickbait.
Yes. So our story of this one is that Echo, who won the Great Push, they used an unknown bug involving permanent misdirection, where they used that alongside Feign Death to snap the exploding friendly fire plague borers a whole way across the dungeon to the end boss to get significant extra damage on said end boss. So that is that is creative use of game mechanics. They could basically use a bug to give perma misdirect, and then because somebody would be perma misdirecting to the tank, pull a whole bunch of those dudes, they then snap their way all over, I guess, to the end boss.
Yeah, it was
to kill it quicker.
Blowing up ads on that boss.
Yeah.
Blowing up ads on that boss. I will say there's a slight difference in... Now, I actually can't remember if this is true or not, so please correct me if I'm wrong, but I remember people trying to do it without the permanent MD bug. As in, just use MD, hit it, Feign Death, and then see if they snap, and they wouldn't. So the permanent MD thing seems to have actually like a impact on it. Yeah. Which kind of changes it from being you could do the same with misdirect to permanent misdirect wasn't like a modifier, it completely changed the behavior. But it still stands that they knew how to do it and they did it. They apparently got the all clear from Blizzard ahead of time.
That was interesting.
Even though I don't think Blizzard have communicated that. I believe that's I don't know if that's true or not, but it has I have seen it said. Yeah. And I saw no one dispute that. So it's not against the rules to use an unknown bug, which sounds insane. But to the letter of the law is don't use known bugs. Which is weird.
Certainly, if you are using it intentionally, then it's a known bug to you. Yeah. Then you have to think about Spirit of the Law versus... Yeah. Spirit of the Law also is a really good Age of Empires 2 YouTuber, just by the way.
Of course it is. Of course it is.
So yeah, there you go. Basically, it seems a little bit exploity, but they cleared it with Blizzard. Blizzard were fine with it. Then I guess a bunch of viewers see that and think, oh, that's not really the spirit of the competition. But also... Like it's Echo. They did they win the previous or they're? I mean, I've heard people say it's like still just like it is the case. Like the best players won still.
Yeah, they weren't going. I don't think it was like completely guaranteed, but at this point, it's like they are still. I think widely considered the best team. So
right, gotcha.
It's a case of will they have won without this? Probably.
Yeah,
but.
So Matt, why bring it up then?
Yeah, so this is a thing where actually Mortal Wombat actually put this basically perfectly, saying, I felt we had to abuse/break the game in order to complete them in time, and we never got far even. That's exactly the thing that I wanted to talk about with this, because we had a long talk about M+ on the podcast, and also last week. Was it? Yeah, last week or before, whatever it was. But it's a kind of fundamental thing about how M+ is designed. And it's, you don't play the game at plus 28 or plus 30 because the game doesn't exist then. It's been rules crushed. Are broken. The rules have been destroyed by how skilling goes. It's like, imagine if you, like, you know, you finish a Mythic raid end boss and then you just have an option to do it again, but they have 20% more health and damage. Like, you don't have gear to go up to that level. You're now out of the loop of the actual game mechanics.
Another angle is like, as an example, you know, you could get 30 or 40% haste, and it's like, oh, cool, things are faster and fun. But if you get 80% haste, like if you get insane amounts of haste, your spec won't really work as intended anymore. Yep, and be played in bizarre ways.
Yeah, even the GCD doesn't work when you're at that level of haste.
yeah, which you know is brought up just to talk about the scaling side of things. Yeah. Which it's the funny thing, to most people, Mythic Plus is never going to reach the stage where it feels like you're at the limit of the game's mechanics functioning. Yeah. But the Great Push, especially, because it is the best teams in the world pushing as far as they can, they kind of will be going for scraps. Or like going for just every odd little interaction and thing that they can to achieve their goal. Which is actually kind of fascinating to watch. I actually think. It's kind of crazy seeing how the pros do it.
Yeah.
But then it also does reveal, things getting funky because of the scaling.
I'm not going to be able to tell this story correctly. Fuck's sake, I wish I remembered it better. But it's, you know the rules of basketball where dribbling is a thing. I believe it was originally you weren't allowed to dribble. You weren't allowed to move the ball at all. Kind of netball rules, I think it is.
Okay.
And then players got really smart about that and started to they basically started to dribble because like, oh, I'm not moving with the ball. I'm passing the ball to myself.
Yeah.
And that wasn't part of the rules. And there were I believe there was at least some pushback on that. And I think this is the early 90s maybe. No, early 90s. Early 1900s, sorry.
Yeah.
Early 1900s. And it's that case where that was clever use of game mechanics.
Yeah.
And then they went, you know
cool.
what? Shit it's in the rules now. You can dribble. And then,
I know.
And now basketball's a massively different and massively improved game as a result. But it's a case where, what the hell's that? At the high level, you'll break the game for even the tiniest advantage.
Yeah.
And that's kind of what happens here in the Great Push and at the 28 plus, the 25 plus, the 30s. Because the game, you're pushed up against the wall of mechanics. And it's because of how the scaling actually works. Because literally, your gear won't scale up with M+.
No.
There is an end level of your ability as your ability as a character to put out damage. And to survive damage if you're a tank. And once it scales above that level, it's over. Because it infinitely scales. It will scale as high as you will push it. So it is a case of you'll maybe naturally, even playing perfectly, you won't be able to do above a plus 20 something. But then you're like, well, I need to do the next level. What do I do? And that's when you look for bugs. That's when you look for really busted skips. That's when you do all that insane shit. And I think that's it's a different kind of gameplay, I find. It's a different kind of gameplay than actually playing the game perfectly. And as I put on here, it's not my ideal way of playing games. I'd rather have a really tightly defined rule set and play within it to the best of my ability.
Same.
But there's no doubt that people really enjoy breaking rules. And I think it's a kind of, I have it here, it's the kind of player versus developer gameplay where the devs are going, all right, try this one then. And they're like, here's 6 bugs, just broke it. You're like, oh, all right, fix the bug, try again. Yeah. So it is it's almost transcended the bounds of the game itself, which itself can kind of break the fantasy of the game.
Well, I guess that is basically the thing.
Yeah.
The fact that you are playing a game with a rule set becomes more and more clear whenever you're brushing up against the scaling, making the mechanics no longer feel as if they work as intended. As you said, this is, no matter what the game is, this is pretty much always going to happen at the highest. If you have scaling difficulty and you keep on going until it's barely possible, you're going to have to do weird shit.
Yep.
That's basically what it's like and why Echo, I suppose, felt they needed to use some special tactics.
Yeah.
It was, maybe a little bit dramatic, people thinking they should or should not have used those tactics, but there you go. Fair enough. Basically, nature of the beast. And it's the sort of thing where I don't think we see that kind of thing as much in raiding. Because in raiding, it's more like hyper-optimizing, around the one thing. But the whole point is that your Mythic raid is very much actually designed to be defeated at that particular scaling and difficulty, etc. Whereas with this, a designer is not scaling up that experience every single time manually to ensure that it's, still the spirit of the game, but really hard. No, it's just a flat number increasing it, which does mean that sometimes your game mechanics won't feel as, just they'll feel different, it'll feel weird. Which I guess is what's going on there. To some people, that's bad. It doesn't feel like things are consistent, and it's kind of like some of people's criticisms of tyrannical at high keys.
Yeah.
But for other people, that's a really cool challenge. Where you're like, okay, so this should be almost mathematically impossible. Here's the tools that I've got to play with. How do I make it not impossible?
Yeah.
Which to some people, that is like peak gameplay.
Yep. I personally disagree with that, which is why I have speedrunners down here as a example comparison, because it's kind of the same as how any percent speedrunners will, it's definitely not ideal Elder Scrolls gameplay to hide under a rock and tap your way through to reach a door around the other side that you shouldn't have access to, or launch your horse off the top of a mountain with you on it. because Skyrim speedruns are insane. But like that's not gameplay in the way the devs intended, but it's fun to them. Versus like any % glitchless runs, which I prefer significantly more. I prefer games where it's like, here, I'm not breaking anything about this game. I am just playing to perfection. And I enjoy that a lot more, but it's each to their own in a sense. I can kind of see the joy in both. It's just, I personally think for World of Warcraft, I think this is a developers designing stuff a little bit around the 1% and playing a fun little game of cat and mouse with them, instead of thinking about the player who wants to do their mechanics ideally and perfectly within a thing, which is again something I'd like to talk to when we get to FF, how mechanically the games feel different. But
well, I guess it's just the sort of thing where it's always going to feel like that whenever you have a tournament format with that is specifically this one. Yeah. So I mean, overall, like I do support the Great Push being there, and I think that having the tournament be closer to the actual experience of players, I think that is way better. And also, you know, for an average Mythic Plus runner who never really brushes up against the crazy stuff, it's going to be really cool for them as viewers, seeing like, wow, this dungeon that I've done so many times, this is what it looks like when it is scaled so hard that they basically have to break shit in order to get through. Yeah. There's going to be something cool as a viewer in seeing that. Definitely. Perhaps almost like, you know, I watched like a StarCraft 2 match and I'm like, you know, this is the game that I play, but there is no way that I could play it like that because I'm not capable enough. Yeah. But then that makes it a really fascinating viewer experience because I've seen more anecdotal positive viewer experiences from Great Push than MDI. Or at least I've seen loads of people say to me they really enjoyed the Great Push. I didn't watch it, but you know, because WoW Esports honestly is, look, I'll watch StarCraft 2 because I love that as an esport. WoW, you know, I don't care about WoW as an esport, to be honest with you.
It's funny because I like WoW as an esport as a viewer a little bit, but I don't like WoW as an esport as a player. So there's just there's just dissonance in me where like, I kind of like watching that stuff, but at the same time like, it's not for me. Yeah, it's not for me.
Yeah. So there you go. It's not really a drama, but I think it's just a way to talk about what's going on in the Great Push that is, you know, speaks to sort of broader design things. That's kind of interesting.
Yep, some good stuff.